Ja, jag är verkligen en ganska skicklig schackspelare.
Du kan ändå inte vara skickligare än jag.
Varför vill du spela schack med mig?
Det är min sak.
Det har du rätt i.
Villkoret är att jag får leva så länge jag står dig emot. Spelar jag dig matt, förger du mig.
How would you outsmart the one force no one can escape, death itself? In Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal, we're invited into a chilling world where a knight faces more than just the end of life. He's forced to confront the universe's deafening silence. But beyond his chess game with death lies a deeper struggle, a battle within. Antonius Block, the knight, isn't just fighting to survive. He's grappling with his own buried darkness. What Carl Jung calls the shadow grows stronger with every step he takes. As Block searches for meaning, he's not only confronting death, he's staring into the terrifying absurdity of existence itself.
Ingen människa kan leva med döden för ögonen och vetskapen om alltings intighet.
De flesta människor reflekterar varken över döden eller intigheten.
Men en dag står du ju ändå på livets yttersta näs och ser mot mörkret.
Ja, den dagen.
Jag förstår vad du menar.
Block's clearly not asking for much, just a glimpse of the divine, a whisper from the universe to ease his restless soul. But staring into the abyss has its perks. Maybe it doesn't answer your deepest questions, but it sure wakes you up faster than any cup of coffee ever could. Albert Camus believed that life's greatest struggle lies in confronting the absurd, the realization that our search for meaning will always be met with the universe's indifferent silence. In The Seventh Seal, Block's chess game with death symbolizes this absurdity. Yet Jungian perspective offers another layer. While Block wrestles with the absurd externally, internally, he faces his shadow, the hidden darker parts of his psyche. According to Jung, these traits, buried and ignored, gain power the more we run from them. Therefore, Block's battle is twofold: a desperate attempt to find meaning in a meaningless world, as Camus described, and a confrontation with the hidden darkness within himself. Only by facing both can he hope to understand the truth of his existence. Camus suggests that in the face of an indifferent universe, we must accept that there is no external meaning. The absurd lies in our relentless pursuit of answers in a world that remains silent. Yet Jung provides a different path. While the external world may refuse to provide meaning, our internal world can reveal deeper truths. Jung believed that facing our shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge, is crucial to understanding who we are. If you want to explore your own shadow, start by reflecting on moments when you felt triggered, irrationally angry, or defensive. These moments often point to the aspects of yourself you're trying to avoid. But even after exploring these inner truths, as Camus would remind us, the absurd still lingers. The universe may not offer answers, but Jung believed that the act of confronting your inner darkness brings personal meaning. Camus would argue that even in a meaningless world, the challenge is to create your own meaning from the inside out.
Mitt liv har varit ett jagande, farande, talande utan mening eller sammanhang. Det har varit en intighet. Ja, jag säger det utan bitterhet eller självförebråelse. Eftersom jag vet att nästan alla människors liv är beskaffade på just det sättet. Men mitt uppskov vill jag använda till en enda meningsfull handling.
Därför spelar du schack med döden.
Ah yes, the absurd at its finest, searching for meaning like it's a pair of lost keys, only to realize the universe doesn't even own a door. Block's frustration captures a universal tension. Albert Camus, in his philosophy of the absurd, focuses on the external, our desire for meaning in a universe that offers only silence. It's as if we're playing a game where the rules are absent, and Block's chess match with death perfectly captures this existential struggle. Every move he makes is an attempt to extract meaning from a world that remains indifferent, echoing Camus's assertion that the absurd arises from this confrontation between human need and the unreasonable silence of the universe. Yet Carl Jung presents another perspective, one that shifts the focus inward. For Jung, meaning doesn't emerge from the external world, but from the depths of our unconscious. His concept of synchronicity suggests that our internal world creates patterns and meaningful coincidences, answers not from the indifferent universe, but from within ourselves. Where Camus finds absurdity in the outer silence, Jung finds purpose in the mysterious workings of the inner mind. As Camus eloquently states in The Myth of Sisyphus, man stands face to face with the irrational. He feels within him his longing for happiness and for reason. The absurd is born of this confrontation between the human need and the unreasonable silence of the world. The absurd, as Camus describes it, is the clash between our desire to find meaning in life and the universe's total indifference. Imagine spending hours asking someone important questions, only for them to remain completely silent. That's how the absurd feels, a frustrating, unanswered search for meaning. According to Carl Gustav Jung, there may be another dimension at play, one that operates within us. As Block wrestles with the silence of the universe, Jung would argue that perhaps the answers he seeks are not external, but internal. Jung's concept of synchronicity suggests that when the external world fails to offer clarity, our unconscious mind steps in, creating meaningful coincidences, moments where the inner and outer worlds align. Consider this. After struggling with a tough decision, you randomly pick up a book or article, and the first passage you read resonates perfectly with your current dilemma, as if guiding you toward a solution. Jung called this synchronicity, a mysterious alignment of inner thought and outer reality that leaves you questioning the nature of meaningful coincidences.
You know, there are plenty of facts in the observation of the unconscious where you come across cases of a very peculiar kind of parallel events, namely that, say, I have a certain thought or a certain definite subject is occupying my attention or my interest. At the same time, something else, quite independently, happens that portrays just that thought.
Yes.
Now, this is utter nonsense, you know, looked at from a causal point of view. That it is not nonsense is made evident by the results of Rein's experiments. There is a probability, it is something more than chance.
But there's another struggle at play. In Jung's view, Block's search for answers isn't just external. It's a deeper internal quest to reconcile his conscious desires with the darker unconscious parts of himself, the shadow. Meanwhile, Camus would argue that Block's search for meaning in an indifferent universe is doomed from the start. For Camus, the external world offers only silence, while Jung believed that true meaning comes from within. Block is forced to confront both the emptiness of the world around him and the hidden darkness within his own soul.
Är det så grymt otänkbart att fatta Gud med sina sinnen? Varför ska han gömma sig i en dunstkrets av halvuttalade löften och osedda under? Hur ska vi kunna tro på de troende när vi inte tror själva? Vad blir det av oss som vill tro men inte kan? Och vad blir det av dem som varken vill eller kan tro? Varför kan jag inte döda Gud inom mig? Varför lever han vidare inom mig på ett smärtsamt och förödmjukande sätt, trots att jag förbannar honom och vill vräka ut honom ur mitt hjärta? Varför är han trots allt en jäckande verklighet som jag inte kan bli kvitt? Hör du mig?
In other words, while we strive to lead meaningful lives and follow a reasonable path, the world remains indifferent to our desires. Camus suggests that one way to cope with this is by recognizing religion as a comforting illusion. However, for Camus, this illusion is a false hope, a way to avoid confronting the absurd. In contrast, Jung might reason that this illusion may also be a projection of our own unacknowledged darkness, the shadow we refuse to integrate.
Jag ska minnas den här stunden. Stillheten och skylningen. Skål med smultron. Skål med mjölk.
Och detta ska vara mig ett tecken. Och en stor tillräcklighet.
The film vividly illustrates how illusions born of fear and ignorance can give rise to evil, people mutilating their bodies in desperate repentance, convinced the plague is God's wrath, and a town torturing and executing a young girl, claiming the Black Death is the work of the devil within her. From Jung's perspective, such evil is a projection of the shadow, our own repressed darkness, onto others because we fail to confront it within ourselves. The atrocities that Block witnesses, self-mutilation, the persecution of the girl, are not just acts of desperation. They are the external manifestations of humanity's collective shadow, a refusal to acknowledge and integrate our inner darkness. While Camus would interpret these horrors as the natural consequence of humanity's futile search for meaning in an indifferent and chaotic world, Jung saw them as the tragic result of neglecting the unconscious, allowing the shadow to seep into reality and corrupt our actions. Once more, our protagonist turns to despair, but his squire Jöns refuses to follow. Unlike Block, Jöns doesn't waste time searching for answers where none exist. His pragmatism is his shield. Where Block asks grand questions about God and meaning, Jöns sees survival and laughter as the best antidote to absurdity. Jöns' approach may seem cynical, but it's also freeing. Instead of grappling with unanswerable questions, he chooses to live in the moment. Where Block seeks meaning in every shadow, Jöns simply accepts the darkness for what it is, part of life, but not the whole of it. According to Camus, the only way to confront this absurdity is by resisting despair and embracing what he calls the absurd hero, one who finds strength and defiance in a world without meaning. In Jungian terms, true growth comes from resisting the urge to project our shadow onto others and instead integrating it into our consciousness. This, for Jung, is the path to individuation, the journey toward becoming whole. As Camus insightfully remarks in The Myth of Sisyphus, this universe henceforth without a master seems to him neither sterile nor futile. Each atom of that stone, each mineral flake of that night-filled mountain, in itself forms a world. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Just as Sisyphus finds meaning in his struggle, Jöns, the squire, embodies a similar defiance in the face of a chaotic world. But where Camus' absurd hero finds strength in embracing the futility, Jöns confronts life's meaningless trials with biting cynicism and humor, mocking the very emotions others would cling to.
Titta! Nu bölar han igen.
Jag kanske älskar den.
Du kanske älskar den. Då ska jag tala om för dig, din stackars förvirrade fläsklägg, att kärlek det är ett annat ord för lusta plus en förbannad massa bedrägeri, lögn, falskhet och allmänt lurendrejeri.
Ja, men det gör ont i alla fall.
Ja, naturligtvis. Kärleken är den svartaste av alla pester.
Ah, Jöns, ever the romantic. While Jöns mocks love and dismisses its significance with his cynicism, his perspective mirrors the existential defiance that Camus speaks of, finding humor in the darkness. Jöns, like Camus' absurd hero, rejects grand ideals, but remains grounded in the moment, using wit to cope with the harshness of life. Despite the horrors of life, Camus argues that we can still find moments of beauty and humor, and these moments help us make the best of a meaningless world. Similarly, Jung believed that through individuation, embracing the shadow, we can find meaning in the chaos of life. And while finding beauty and humor in chaos may provide temporary relief, Camus also warns that in today's world, even the act of admitting happiness comes with a challenge. He notes that happiness, especially in a world full of suffering and injustice, can often feel naive or out of place. Yet, for Block, thoughts of happiness are distant echoes, overshadowed by the crushing absurdity that consumes him. The strength Camus speaks of no longer offers solace to Block, leaving only emptiness.
Bon, où en est-elle? Ah oui, le bonheur. Eh bien, pour le bonheur aujourd'hui, c'est comme pour le crime de droit commun. N'avouez jamais. Ne dites pas comme ça, sans penser à mal, ingénument, je suis heureux. Car aussitôt, vous verriez autour de vous, sur des lèvres retroussées, votre condamnation. Ah, vous êtes heureux, mon garçon. Et que faites-vous des orphelins du Cachemire ou des lépreux de la Nouvelle-Zélande qui ne sont pas heureux, eux, comme vous dites? Eh oui, que faire des lépreux? Comment s'en débarrasser, comme dit notre ami Ionesco? Et aussitôt, nous voilà tristes comme des cure-dents. Pourtant, moi, J'ai plutôt l'impression qu'il faut être fort et heureux pour bien être élégant dans le malheur. Celui qui traîne sa vie et succombe sous son propre poids ne peut aider personne. Et celui au contraire qui se domine et qui domine sa vie, celui-là peut être vraiment généreux et donner efficacement.
Camus would caution against the illusion of happiness, especially in a world rife with suffering. But, in a twist of irony, he suggests that we can still find strength and meaning in accepting this very absurdity.
Varför ser du så nöjd ut?
Det är min hemlighet.
Självfallet. Nu slår jag din springare.
Det gjorde du rätt i.
Har du lurat mig?
Ja, visst. Du gick i fällan. Jag ställer dig i schack.
Vad skrattar du åt?
Bry dig inte om mitt skratt, rädda din kung istället.
Du är ganska övermodig.
Vårt spel roar mig.
The crushing absence of meaning, the eerie silence of a world indifferent to human suffering, and Block's spiraling despair bring him to the threshold of his own soul, a crucial moment in his journey toward individuation. In Jungian terms, this despair is necessary, for it forces Block to confront his shadow. But what if Camus is wrong? What if our despair is misplaced and there is a God or a meaning to be found? Søren Kierkegaard believed that reason alone cannot lead us to the truth. Instead, he suggests a leap of faith. As Kierkegaard insightfully noted in his journals, it is perfectly true, as philosophers say, that life must be understood backwards, but they forget the other proposition, that it must be lived forwards. And if one thinks over that proposition, it becomes more and more evident that life can never really be understood in time simply because at no particular moment can I find the necessary resting place from which to understand it, backwards. In other words, life's a bit like a chess game. You can only understand your strategy in hindsight, but during the game you're just making moves and hoping for the best. Kierkegaard reminds us that while life is understood in hindsight, we are compelled to live it forward, navigating uncertainty as we go. As he notes, in Fear and Trembling, what the self now lacks is surely reality. So one would commonly say, as one says of a man, that he has become unreal. But upon closer inspection, it is really a necessity the man lacks. For it is not true, as the philosophers explain, that necessity is a unity of possibility and actuality. No, actuality is a unity of possibility and necessity. Nor is it merely due to lack of strength when the soul goes astray in possibility. At least this is not to be understood as people commonly understand it. What really is lacking is the power to obey, to submit to the necessary in oneself, to what may be called one's limit. Therefore, the misfortune does not consist in the fact that such a self did not amount to anything in the world. No, the misfortune is that the man did not become aware of himself, aware that the self he is a perfectly definite something.
Men nu ser jag något intressant.
Vad ser du?
Du är matt i nästa drag.
Det är sant.
Nu går jag ifrån dig. När vi möts nästa gång i din och dina följeslagares tid, ute.
Och du uppenbarar dina hemligheter.
Jag bär inte på några hemligheter.
Så du vet ingenting?
Jag är ovetande.
In this moment, Block realizes that death holds no secrets, only the unyielding silence of the inevitable. The answers he sought were never to be found in the external world or through divine revelation. Instead, he is left staring into the very absurdity that has shadowed him, a void reflecting the universe's indifference, as Camus would say. From a Jungian lens, the true battle was never with death, but within himself. The final game is not about escaping fate, but about facing the deepest recesses of his own soul, the shadow he can no longer deny. As Camus reflected on the clash between humanity and the universe, I said that the world is absurd, but I was too hasty. This world in itself is not reasonable, that is all that can be said. But what is absurd is the confrontation of this irrational and the wild longing for clarity whose call echoes in the human heart.